All right, there we go. All set. All set? Good to go.
But think whenever now I can't even deal with you anymore. Now that you have this list, you're running everything. You're gonna be running everything. Can't create them. All right, call to order. Roll call.
Chairman Updegrove?
Here.
Mr. Voccio?
Here.
Mr. Casale?
Here.
Mr. DiPaolo?
Here.
Mr. Forma?
Here.
Ms. Johnson? She's here.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have anyone on the power list in attendance?
We need a power.
Maybe we can take a separate role for that. I am not on it, so I will not be raising
All
my
right,
hand.
it's embedded.
Okay, approval of the 11/22/24 minutes. Mr. Voccio, second. Yep. Mr. DiPaolo, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the financial report.
So we have the unrestricted funds, NORLIC funds. We haven't met for a little bit, so the activity that I provided to you starts November 14th and it goes to the 15th of January. The checking balance the balance of the checking account at that time was $79,137.85. I have put in a couple draws, which I just received this week, and I'll be putting in another a draw because as the bills are coming in, they're quite large. So it depletes the checking account and I gotta hurry up and do a draw and get the money back because we're doing a lot of work in Niagara Falls. And then with the ARPA funding, the only thing that's in there is our interest income that we received. And also, we're allowed to keep that interest income. So at the end of the year, I transferred over, in this case, I did 6 months at a time, June to December, and move it over into unrestricted funding. So there was $846.79 that we made in the interest that I transferred over to the unrestricted. For the next thing is the phase 1 land bank budget. The draw that I just said that I did was for October to December at $37,169.40. And right now, January through March, these are the current expenses that I've posted to date. There'll be more, obviously it goes to March. The balance right now in the grant is $108,503.93. And then with the phase 2, this is our the funds dispersed to date is go back over the other side $399,704.11. And of that, $12,509.04 is an admin fee that we're receiving because we get 5% of the activity. We get 5%. We get to keep that as an admin fee. So, anybody have any questions about any of that?
Thank you. Okay, Griswold Street, Watertown.
Okay, we put this on the agenda because I don't remember that we approved this as a project. But this is and you got pictures of the water tower in your email, so I apologize. We don't have them up on the screen just now, but it's a water tower, a cylindrical water tower about, 100 feet tall in the village of Middleport. On the outskirts, it's on a country road. It doesn't even have an address. A physical address, so we're just calling it the water tower on Griswold Street. The sheriff's department asked us to take it down because it's basically non-viable. It's non-functioning infrastructure, and they're going to put up a communications tower there, which will aid obviously in their operations and assist in their work. So it would be a great conversion of this land to a higher and better use. And I just, I think currently where it is in its sort of development is Amy and I are working on the environmental compliance pieces that would allow us to do the work on it, to demo it. That should take about a few more weeks. The sheriff's department wanted it down by spring, so that's kind of the timeline that we're working with, that they kind of asked us to keep in mind. And that's all on target, but I just wanted to kind of have this dialogue, bring it, forward as a project to make sure that we were all, on board with it and make sure that it's approved formally.
Is this something that would be covered by the land bank grants that we get?
Yeah, this is a phase 2. It's under, I listed it as, Griswold Street, Middleport, New York. It's the very, very last in progress on the phase 2 budget. Now, it's only got the money attached to it for the environmental work, and the compliance work right now will have to take some of the money that's allocated. This is what we have been doing with the phase 2 money, and just move it down for the demolition. It'll just come from a different area, basically.
So what's on the spreadsheet? That's not the total cost?
It won't be the total cost for the demolition because we don't know that yet. We haven't gotten any numbers, but I'm assuming that it's going to be, in line with our other demolition costs. It's probably no more than 50,000.
So this is all environmental costs.
This is just the environmental compliance work that we need to do ahead of time.
There's unallocated funding
Yeah,
to put towards it.
that's I just wanted to clear that up to make sure that it didn't look like that's all.
So we approve this once we get the estimate of the total demo?
We typically approve something as a project before we get all the information. But it's more or less like, is this something that you're okay with doing? And then when it comes time to it, we'll issue the RFP for the demo work. Then you'll get the estimates. Then you'll select the contractor for the job, and that'll be based on the cost. So I think it's just a matter of approving it as one of our projects.
All right, I'll move it. Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Matt, what do you have?
Okay, so I got a couple of things. First of all, I kind of want to update just, around the county more or less before we dive into Niagara Falls. So NT, we did the 78 Bridge Street demolition this past month, and it went very well. We followed our demolition plan that we had to do because of the nature of the site. Amy, thank you again for all of your help and coordination on this. We wouldn't have been able to do it, and Rob too. Really critical in getting this down for NT. And I know that the mayor was very, very appreciative and very, very grateful to all of us. And he expressed that to me. I wanted to share that with you because this was a big one for them, and as I'm sure many of you know about 78 Bridge Street, it was kind of a contentious place. And I think we, in our role, helped, if that makes sense. We kind of cleared the way to make a good project happen ultimately. And that's, I think a win-win for everybody. In Lockport, I work closely with the treasurer's office. And one of the properties that we're still pursuing is Niagara Street, the property next to the History Museum. I don't know if I updated anyone here. I did reach out to the owner of that house, that burned out house, who lives in downstate, who sold it to a nonprofit in New Jersey to avoid housing court. But they're going to talk to the nonprofit about donating it to the land bank because they don't really want it. They just don't want the problem. So we're talking about an off-ramp for them, basically, to take that down. That's a priority for Lockport. Which brings me to Niagara Falls. And then I wanted to, this spreadsheet, I wanted to kind of just show, this is all of the Main Street portfolio properties. This is their status. This is what we think we can do with them based on their condition, whether it's a rehab, a demolition, a stabilization, whatever the case may be. We've been in each of the properties. Tom Feddison, our property inspector, has been opening them, unlocking them, getting them ready to tour them. I've been taking interested developers through as, and thank you all who came to the developers tour this in January. And we have had some wonderful feedback from that. I've gotten, a bunch of people out to view these buildings. And the city, I can't thank enough for their coordination too, because honestly, it's been very encouraging to have these conversations with people that they're not used to this level of, well, the county is dealing with the state, who's dealing with the city, who's dealing with the nonprofit, they're all talking to each other and working on this project. And I think everybody I've walked through the Jens building or, any other building with, really not just sees the possibility, but I think feels the potential because of that collaboration. And I just want to make sure we all know about that, and kind of keep that in mind. It's really been a boon for not just these developers, but us in terms of building our partnerships with, other local agencies, our nonprofits locally too. So you may have noticed, and I just want to make sure everyone knows this. Our building did get a mural painted on it. I think I brought it up to us last time we were together. I talked to the Heritage area. They painted it. It's nice. It looks nice. They're,
This is 2010.
2010 Maine. It's called The Table.
Did they ask before
They didn't ask us before they painted it.
Let's knock that building down.
They didn't ask us before they painted it. They sought our forgiveness afterwards. And I was like, maybe next time we coordinate these things rather than just do our own thing.
Did they have my picture on or anything for the power list? Was there one person from
We're
the
gonna
power
go
list?
add your picture to it,
Oh,
We
well
should-
then I don't want it.
because that should probably.
Like
be
North
some
Korea.
relationships
Should help.
to cover it with.
One of
My
the
picture.
big banners.
Yeah,
There's a lot
I
of
like
power
it.
list in the
I actually have
Oh,
one.
the George Costanza
No, I
picture,
haven't.
you like on that.
I have a banner at home. I'll bring it in. So
Look up the real fat pad picture.
I thought, was the mural actually painted on the building or were there were signs that were attached? It's actually on the, I haven't been by it.
Yeah, there's facing. They're just
I thought it was on the
plywood.
board.
Yeah,
Oh, so it
plywood.
can go off.
Yeah.
It'll come off.
Oh, okay, I'm not.
It'll come off. All of those murals will come down. They'll all come off. That's the whole thing is we put up signage for this Main Street project on murals that were painted, indicating our website with the information about the project and,
Yeah,
how to
QR
contact
codes,
us.
yeah.
Generally, my conversations with the heritage area is we're just going to give them back the murals
Okay.
because they were concerned, they were concerned about what was going to happen with the murals, and I said, well, they're clearly not going to stay on the building if a developer purchases the Jens building. He's going to want windows, right? And so I said, you guys are more than welcome to take them back and do whatever you want with them.
Without having, maybe I think I did drive by and see. Now that I think about it, they're attached to the front of the building.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so my only concern, it's not a big deal. I don't really have a problem with the murals. It's just that we don't want to walk down a weird path where any non-owner or non-stakeholder can simply add stuff to the buildings because, obviously we have an obligation to maintain the condition of those buildings, but also vouch for any content that is put on them.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I
so I would say going forward, I just want to make sure it's clear. This is not an affront to the Niagara Heritage Foundation. It's not. It's just we have to have the policy is nothing goes on any buildings that we own. Nothing, no advertising, no signs.
I'm meeting with them next week, so.
The city will agree with you.
Yeah, because we can't. Obviously, we need to control whatever messaging is put on the buildings that we now have title to.
especially with the state funding,
Yeah.
attached and everything. So no, I hear you, and I will enforce, with them and on my level too, because I did tell them, please don't do this again. So
Try next time without the police.
Exactly. So, I wanted to, so this is kind of hot off the presses too, this next sort of, my update, and it's to do with our funding. So all of this currently is being funded through phase 2 land bank initiative funding. So this is all gonna be pre-development work that's gonna do the environmental testing, that's gonna do if there's architectural renderings, we're working with, our construction management firm to do sort of the scopes of work that need to happen to stabilize the buildings if need be. At the same time, when that environmental compliance work is done, what that will mean is any of that funding that we currently have could be flipped to capital expenses. So how we see it happening is we're going to run 2 tracks at the same time, basically. So we're running the environmental compliance piece right now to get that all taken care of, because there was, and I believe I made everyone aware, there's another pool of money, a phase 3, that is what we can apply for once we have 100% committed our funds, which we've done, and 75% spent those funds. So that deadline for that grant was December 31st. The state realized, based on the performance of all the land banks, not just us, that that wasn't a feasible deadline for almost anybody. So they extended that to March 31st, which we're working on, now, getting our application, getting all of our ducks in a row for that. So we're spending down to get to that 75% as quickly as possible, while at the same time doing all those compliance pieces to say, okay, we can quickly flip some capital money on, I just keep picking on the Jens building, but we can fix a few windows here, we can do a roof here, we can do this, that, or the other thing. And then for the phase 3, we apply for, $2 million to do capital work in the district. So, and in other places.
So one thing we should do just in general is sit down and talk about all the financing available in the area, because I think through, you guys have funding, it's looking like I'm going to get transportation improvement funds for the Main Street project, which then could free up some of the DRI funding for development purposes.
Okay.
So that's all in motion. I think I'm going to get close to $5 million from federal funds for transportation, which means that now I have about $10.5 million for the streetscape, which I think might be a little overkill, but I think we can then start. And Department of State's well on that, so I think we just need to sit down and figure out where all the funding is going and how we can supplement it in the out years too, because the TIP funding's going to come next year, not
right.
That won't take effect until October 1st of this year. So plus we have additional DRI funding for facade improvements, which I think we already established that NORLIC's eligible for. So currently we have 80,000. One of the folks might pull out, so we could have up to 200,000 still in DRI funds for facade and external improvements along the corridor. So
that's great. So, and like we talked, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, Matt and I were talking about, you're right, I think we do have to sit down and have a conversation. Matt and I talked about, phase 3, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, we talked a little bit about and we talked about with Crystal, submitting an application, one application, but almost in 2 parts, one kind of highlighting our work to be done in 2010, and then the rest for, all the other projects that we're gonna be doing. 2010 is easy. She seemed to have liked the project because we already own it, right? And if Niagara University goes there, I think the idea is to put money in there to stabilize it, preserve the facade. But I guess I just want to say that we need to start thinking about other projects across the county for phase 3 money. We need projects.
Yeah, because we're going to get that pool, and it's going to be for stabilization and for demolition and for acquisition, and we can flip any of it to any of our partners, basically. But the project on 2010, 2018, when we submit that application, if we have specific projects like 2010, that's going to strengthen our application, and that's going to allow us probably to get more out of the phase 3 pool. Because just so we're all the land bank initiative from July of last year, the numbers were 110 million. I probably already shared this with everybody, but I'm just repeating it so we're all aware. 110 million in the last 4 years has been allocated to land banks. As of July last year, there had only been 12 million spent. That's probably closer now to 20, about 20, 22, from what I've heard. But in the coming years, these funding opportunities are going to continue, as is my understanding, and may increase. So yeah, thinking about the projects, thinking about ways to, create opportunities basically to, spend these funds and improve neighborhoods and communities.
And we might want to start considering acquisition, because historically, like, that's not something that we've gotten into, but that really prevents us from doing projects.
It does, and
So maybe that's something we want to think about.
And with the court case, Tyler versus Hennepin, I think a lot of other land banks are using these funds for acquisition, especially strategic acquisition of properties that have historically been, problem properties. Not to reward bad actors, but just to kind of, like we did with 2010 Maine, preserve further deterioration of a neighborhood, more or less.
One of the questions I have about access and, ownership and things like that is, I've started the environmental stuff and I have the RFP ready to go, but there's a question about access. I mean,
To the URA buildings?
Yeah.
yes, is there an access agreement or
Yes.
something for our
Yes.
consultants to all get in there? Because I know Matt and I talked about it, it wasn't clear.
Yes.
We're working on it with Katie, and Kevin and I are working on that access agreement now, and I think it's just,
Okay.
as far, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's mostly a matter of paperwork at this point, because the access agreement needs to be signed after the title work.
Correct. So, we can sign the access agreement at any time, but we can't, it can't be really effective until URA gets control of those properties.
Okay, because I have not sent out the RFP because we were gonna do assessments on all 38 of them at the same time to try to get bulk pricing.
Yeah, the only one we have control of right now is the Rapids Theater.
Okay,
So that we hold title to the Rapids Theater. The remainder of them should be close.
But
within the
let me
next
ask you
month
this,
there.
didn't the banks, they have allowed us to go in, right? Or, what you think it's best to wait for the access agreement, because the bank has allowed us to, which surprised me.
Yeah, the bank is
Yeah.
okay with it.
We can talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit more, but we have a draft access agreement, so
Okay.
there's already one created based off of the same
Yeah,
agreement council passed for NORLIC. We just took that and substituted URA for the city, and we're using that similar agreement, so that should be easy
Yeah.
Okay.
for everybody. I don't need approval from the URA board. They already gave us approval to sign agreements to get these properties sold.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of me reporting back to them. So it does not require council approval because it's a URA action.
Okay, I think what I'll do then is I'll just go ahead and send out the RFP for all of them, and then, if the board awards it to a company, then they might just have to wait until, but at least everything will be in place.
Okay.
Not waste
I'll-
any more time.
Yeah, and I'll try and give you a better time frame.
Yeah, and that's fine, because we have to give them, because there's so many properties, we really should give them 30 days.
Yeah.
to
And
do
once-
proposals.
Well, don't forget, some of these properties you're gonna do them on the vacant parcels as well.
I think we need to, because I was looking at them again, and the 2 vacant properties that are right on the corner.
Dry cleaners and gas
20
stations.
Exactly, so it's a vacant property, but testing has already been done on it, and the property was already accepted into the Broncos cleanup program because there's contaminants on it, and it's a vacant lot.
Is that 2001?
Yeah, 2001, 2011, I think. It's the
Okay.
2 properties on the corner there,
Okay.
and there's no contaminants there, so I think it would be advantageous to just do phase 1s. And the phase 1 on a vacant piece of property is gonna be less than $2,000.
Yeah, we've got like 5,000
Right,
allocated.
Right, so I think
Vacant lot.
it's worthwhile. The only other thing is phase 1s after they're done, they're only good for liability purposes for 180 days. So we have to consider how quick are these properties gonna be flipped?
Matt and I, we talked about that yesterday, and it was, because you and I talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have to spend the money, so it's kind of like,
Right, so just do them
we
and
hope
then
it's gonna,
Yeah.
fall in that time frame. But if it doesn't,
they can just do
it
an
still
update.
serves, yeah, they do
Exactly.
an update, and it still serves the purpose
Yeah.
of us getting through the money, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we should just do phase 1s on all of them.
And that, I think, corresponds to something we talked about yesterday, which is a effort to, once this is done, use those phase ones, as part of a more robust, starting now, marketing push on each of these properties.
Absolutely.
Each of these properties could be marketed individually, basically, with the funding too.
I think we should talk about maybe putting on the website, like some of these links to these documents as we get them, just so that it's just attached to the property.
Yeah.
It's as easy for them to access.
And I was thinking too, as far as some of like the asbestos surveys, I think it might be advantageous to talk to a developer who's considering one of these properties to see if a full asbestos survey would be helpful to them, or if they're just gonna do their own anyway after they take the
They'd
property.
rather not.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, like, is it better for us to spend the money and get a better handle on the asbestos? Because that can be really expensive, especially if you're doing residential and converting one of these buildings. But I would assume, based on the age of the buildings, every single one of them has got lead paint and asbestos. So we can either go with that assumption, or we can actually do the testing.
These are the
But-
ones with walls and floors, right?
Ones with walls and floors, right? The ones that don't have floors, we
Well,
can't access. But I think it would be good to find out from the developer's perspective.
Okay. I can do like a little survey, call a couple.
Just ones maybe that have shown interest in the buildings, maybe just a quick question, like, would it be helpful to you to have this? Because if they say no, then it's, we have the money, but
Okay.
why spend it if no one's gonna use it?
Yeah.
We got other stuff.
I know, right?
But knowing that information might make it more marketable.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because
Thinking that
it takes some of
one-
the unknowns out of
Right.
it.
Do you have to have that survey done for like bank financing?
Probably depends on the
It
lender.
depends,
and
yeah.
Depends on the
Really
lender.
It
They're
probably
gonna want
depends
the
on
phase
the
one.
developer and their relationship with the lender and how much.
Because if it's like a requirement, it would be something I'd say, let's just do it. But if it's not
Right, I mean,
required,
Ellicott and Santa Rosa, like their banks may not, or lenders may not require it, where
Because
they
they
have
Matt
a
Chavez
relationship.
as a lender, they might say, okay, he's got limited resources.
Right.
We need to have that.
Because asbestos can be anywhere from hardly any money to, we did one, it was $800,000 for asbestos abatement, which kept finding it everywhere. It was just a big unknown.
Well, let me talk to like 2 or 3, different
Just
folks
see.
and just see what they say. And then that was the bulk of what I want to go. I have copies of these for folks if you'd like them. And then I just want everyone to be aware of the funding cycles too. The last thing is 1129 Niagara Avenue. Just a quick update. We have talked to the city about that. Currently, we're working on a scope of work for it to stabilize it, to get it as a institutional use, a blank slate for somebody to come in with the funding that we are not committed, we have available from the city, and basically use it as either, according to the zoning, it would be something like a group home, a hostel, daycare facility, or some other use like that. But that will, we hope, spark that node of development there and provide a critical service to the neighborhood that is, complementary to all of the Main Street activity, basically. And I hope it also spurs the next door neighbor to do something with his house, because that's really, that's really part of the
Well, like
big goal.
we talked about it too. There's a company named Dragonfly Games and Deli's in town. But they are considering moving their operations a block up from this, which includes a cafe. It's an old firehouse that they've purchased. They're actually taking some DRI funding to help redo that. So it could help with 1129 and just help with the marketability or what it becomes, right? Like if it's a cafe, the youth hostel or a hostel might be a better use than a daycare. It's not gonna go down and drink coffee.
Right, and it's just, yeah, exactly. It's just, and there's a lot of potential there. I think I should let everyone know today I'm taking a well-known sort of, retail developer through one of them to talk about like a franchise usage of some kind on Main Street. I don't know, it's not my, but yeah.
But he's a doer, right? Like
Yeah, he does a great
he's got multiple franchises, multiple buildings, and we're not opposed to the Pizza Hut going.
No.
I'm hoping for a Mighty Taco or a Tim Hortons, but it's not up to me, obviously. So.
Well, the taco doesn't go into the cities.
I know.
They got their start in the city and then they
Anyways, that's my update, unless anyone has any questions or anything. I'm happy
Katie?
Sure, just a couple things. One is, this past week, the city of Niagara Falls on the 22nd did a resolution that finally waived all the taxes and fees for the first set of Niagara Falls properties. They passed a resolution and put a policy finally in place to help resolve some of the issues we've had in the past with the taxes not being cleared out. And so we should be getting those deeds back from the city soon, and we can file those, and then that first set of Niagara Falls properties will then be ours. And the new policy that they passed should help with all of these other Main Street properties coming. It'll help clear up a system for them in terms of taxes and fees, so that was helpful.
Yeah, so
On February
just
14th,
Katie, just so you're aware, the Main Street properties are already done on both the county level
Okay.
and the city level. So those are, and plus URA is tax exempt too, right? So we're not going to be accruing any other taxes. So that shouldn't be an issue. That should be a separate issue from when you get a standard property from the city.
Yeah. And I let the city, the attorney's office know. I know in the past we've had some issues when the county has taken some property that we haven't been, or when the NORLIC's taken property, we haven't been tax exempt. I know that there was an issue in the past with that, with when John Ottaviano was the attorney. So I'm going to regardless send a letter to the city once we take ownership, just to remind the treasurer's and controller's office of that, just to make sure.
You'll do that. You'll do that
On
for the
February
county.
14th, the
Okay.
county and North Tonawanda are
I was gonna
having settlement conferences. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say you'll do that for the county too, just to make sure that they're aware.
Yeah. Yep.
That, you know, our resolution has no effect on the county. Thank you.
February 14th, the county and North Tonawanda are having their settlement conferences for their tax foreclosure. I know that we've been kind of waiting for NTs to move forward for some of those properties. They're scheduled for the same, so an hour after the counties are on the 14th. So both of those processes are moving forward. After those settlement conferences, then both the city and the county will submit proposed judgments and have a court date after that. So those are both moving forward. I know the city of Blackford just started their new in-rem and filed their petition so their next one will be for a while, but hopefully those NT properties will move along in the process. So that is moving along. The last is 3425 Hyde Park Boulevard. There was some discussion at previous meetings regarding their lack of moving their process forward. And we had, after speaking with the board, sent a letter out to the developer and the attorney stating that they need to do something or we're going to move forward. We did have a call in this last week, Andrea, myself, Amy, with the attorney and the developer about what they've been doing and where they're looking to go. They've been working on some environmental. They did hire an attorney for the foreclosure of those tax liens. They did sign the contract finally and are sending that to Andrea for her signature. So Andrea, I don't know if you want to add anything more about
I have questions.
that.
Question/concern. So this is, just to give everybody a reminder that the time frame, this board voted to authorize the transfer of the tax lien in March. We reached out, I think that day or the next day to the attorney, letting them know and the developer. And then we've had, conversation with them every once in a while, every couple of weeks, and saying, what's going on, what's the status. In July, we had a conference call with the attorney where Katie explained everything, like the process, development of force, everything. And then this more recent call in December, it was like as if that call never took place. We had the exact same conversation. Now, this was following, if you remember last month, we asked if we could send that letter, and Katie did send it saying you have until January 30th to, meet these benchmarks, or we're putting this property back up for tax and for sale. So they did get in contact with us, and they have moved quickly, and they have, following our conference call, they sent us the email here. It says that they have opened up, or they created an LLC. They signed the development enforcement mortgage. They signed the agreement. They've hired an attorney, Dominic Migliaccio, to do master, and they're hoping that, they get a signed engagement letter back from him ASAP. So they have complied with all the benchmarks that Katie set forth in that letter, but then in that letter, it also goes on to say that you have 30 days to provide proof of commencement of the foreclosure proceeding. So my question is, if I sign that contract and they don't comply with the next benchmark in 30 days, how difficult is it to get out of that contract?
Okay, I think you're
Katie, you're
muted.
muted.
Sorry, thank you. We could add language to that contract with regards to those new benchmarks. If that's something that the board still wants to stick to that from the letter. I know we were concerned about them not moving at a fast enough pace. And what Andrea said is correct. They've all of a sudden moved very quickly in the last week or so. So that's something we could add and have them sign off on before we would sign the contract. If the board wants us to move forward with that, or any other additions.
Just add a couple things so the board has a full picture of this. Last summer, the town was calling pretty regularly to the county. They're very, very frustrated that nothing was happening. And there's this perception that the land bank owns the property, not doing anything, right? So, and even though you can explain that over and over, we're still getting a lot of complaints. So I'm very concerned about us coming into the nice weather and none of this being done with that. And I explained that to Mr. Hellner. His response was, we went over, we boarded it up, we did all these things, and I don't know what to say to that, because you don't own the property and you have no right to go on the property. So I appreciate you're trying to do something, but at the same time, we can't ask you to do that. So you're kind of stuck in this, and since we have transferred it, even though we had no interest in this property for a very long time, now we have a lot of interest in it. So that's all the extra information I want to provide you. We have 3 other developers that I think that seem larger and that could move probably maybe quicker. And so that's all I just wanted to give the board all the information, all the details.
I don't want to drop the boat in the water because I looked over the bridge and saw a bigger boat. However, I'm not convinced that the current developer is going to follow through on this. I have some pretty serious concerns given our experience so far. What has happened is not consistent with what he told us when he came here and met with us personally. So I don't care. I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. I would be very comfortable saying you have to have the foreclosure action filed within 30 days from whatever date that we sign the contract. I would be comfortable with that. But it's probably the safest way to go, I suppose, since we've already engaged and we've taken action. But there are developers out there that have contacted us that I would feel more confident that are gonna redevelop this property and reuse it and serve that mission. And so I'm not really sure exactly what we want to do. I don't think there's any reason we couldn't move forward and reopen it to other developers at this point, given the lack of any real action. But that's more of a question for Katie.
I'm just gonna add, can I add what, the thing we talked about yesterday? So this developer, the current developer, reached out to me over this week to talk about Main Street. And I was not going to get too deeply, I mean, obviously they're welcome to submit an application, but I think I was gonna just let them know that based on, this project, it probably wouldn't be, you know.
What he said was he had other projects that it was really taking his focus. And I understand that. That makes sense, on him, and you have a portfolio of projects and you already own something that's gotta take precedence over this. But my concern is like, I just legally don't understand how that works. If I sign that contract and then he doesn't move forward in 30 days, how difficult is it to undo, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Can we put language in there that contract's only good for 60 days? So that way we don't have to go through a process of trying to get it back? Like,
Right, it would be, similar to when we, you utilize the normal real estate contract. We could add language similar to that with the, if you don't have, the example is usually a commitment or a closing date, and then you can get out of the contract. So we could add language similar to, what we normally use on a contract for, when we sell any of our properties, or a normal sale of a house or a property. We could add that language into the contract. So if they don't they don't do parameters within a certain amount of time, then it would cancel. They'd have, we could send a letter saying you're in violation of the contract. If you don't fix it within so many days, then the contract's canceled. So we can add language like that in there.
Is this tax-free transferred or sold? I don't know.
it's sold, it's in the Roland, Mr. Hellner's offer, he offered $50,000 to purchase the tax lien.
Has he paid that?
He doesn't even sign the contract.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying, we have no signed contract with him. Literally nothing more has happened since the day we met with him in March. Except for once they received
Right, that's
Katie's
why I asked.
letter, all this stuff happened.
Sure.
So I do feel like, he's already obviously incurred legal fees to have this
Well,
LLC
but we do have
created and all these other, however, I don't know what that means, but.
I guess the question is, and I don't know the answer to this, would he have damages if we moved
I was wondering,
and opened it up to other? Because he doesn't have a contract, but he has,
a letter saying he has until January 30th.
yes, January 30th to account, but that wasn't to file the foreclosure on the tax lien.
That's correct. He's complied with what was outlined in that letter for January 30th. I believe. Yes, he's executed all these documents and sent it over to us. And then 30 more days and I'll say that it was just, the timing of it was not great because we all of a sudden got all this interest as this was happening.
Right.
It was very weird. And one of the interested parties has called 4 times. They have had their attorney call, and and the same with the other one. It's just
So
really weird.
do we want to call Ryan Hellman and ask him if he's still interested, that we have other options?
Well, that was the call we had, and then following that call, his attorney sent over an email saying that they created the LLC, the attached contract is signed, and they're asking me to sign it and send it back. But prior to doing that, I said that we were going to talk to the board. We did say that in the call, that we would talk to the board and see if they were satisfied with what they've provided.
It sounds like we're gonna have concerns later on with the development enforcement mortgage that he's not gonna do the work on a timely basis either.
Yeah, and I'm currently playing phone tag with him about Main Street, so I'm happy to pass anything along.
Because there'll be, even though we transferred the tax, and there's still a development enforcement mortgage, that's part of the transaction. And what kind of parameters do we put in there?
It outlines his proposal to us.
Right.
So there's benchmarks that he says he's gonna do a certain amount of development, in his proposal, it was the exterior development first within a certain time frame, and then the interior development, and that all gets laid out in the development enforcement mortgage.
Right.
So there's several benchmarks, but and that's great, but and this, it's like if they don't meet them, getting it back.
Okay.
we could waste a whole season. And so I've only gone through this once before, it was with Aaron Santa Rosa, he foreclosed on, is it 2505 or 3505? Okay, 3505. It took him 4 months about to foreclose on it. So we're in this like kind of, we only have a little bit of time to sort of make this decision because in 4 months' time, nice weather's gonna be hitting and the town's gonna be calling us. So we
No doubt.
really wanna make sure that we kind of make the right
There,
decision
there,
here.
there was an issue big time with mosquitoes and
Because there's
that,
sitting
and the
water
truck
there.
actually,
So
the
what-
truck
Trucks
was
are
wet.
so much.
It's terrible.
And what I think the town expressed, and Katie, I think you were talking to me about this, like, so the town has done a good job of requesting some of the neighboring properties clean up the property, and then they're getting pushback saying, well, what about the property across the street? So it's making their job more difficult as well.
I mean, I don't mind reaching out and having a conversation with him about, his plan. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm the solution, but like, I think maybe if there is the thought to move forward like that, I don't mind being a little closer to the project, if that makes sense, and kind of, corresponding more with him to say, hey, not just about the benchmarks, but just kind of keep it on track a little bit.
Well, one of the thoughts that Matt and I talked about yesterday was maybe this was just too big of a project for Mr. Hemler, and maybe, Matt tried to talk to him beforehand, maybe one of the conversations is, let's refocus your efforts onto Main Street. There might be a smaller, more achievable project there for you rather than.
I would say that if this is the methodology, I would say this is gonna impact the committee's decision on how, of giving him a Main Street property, right? Because this is his history.
Yeah,
I'm on this committee.
Yeah.
I'm on that
he does
committee.
have a successful track record though, he has done, successful projects, so I appreciate that his attention was diverted, I can understand what he's saying, but this is just
Yeah.
not a property that we.
Of course, they all say that.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to give all the information so the board can make the most informed decision.
And I'm open to doing whatever you need me to do, so.
So you're worried about what we has damages if we open it up.
Suppose. I don't think he's put a lot of, I think they would be significant. Right now, there's no contract.
We could also offer to pay that to sort of,
It's part of the
probably
sale.
not super, like a couple $1,000s at the most.
Like mainly attorney fees, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's just attorney fee to create the LLC. What I did not like in his email
Probably
from
should
his attorney was, lastly, my client and I have reached out to Dominic Migliaccio, the attorney. We hope to do the legal work on the tax foreclosure. I attached one PDF of my client's retainer check, so that's great, okay. Mr. Migliaccio and asked that Dominic get in touch with us ASAP and provide me with an engagement letter. So, for those of you that are attorneys here, like, if you haven't, you sent them and you haven't signed an engagement letter, is it realistic that in 30 days before closure can commence? Is that a realistic?
Well, by commencement, all that means is filing the action. You can do that in one day.
So,
You just gotta prepare the papers and file them. So we probably, I know we talked about it, we probably should have had him come here today to tell him, point blank, this is what we're planning on doing. We could probably put a really tight time frame on the commencement of the foreclosure. Something within less than 30 days, so that when we meet again, we don't have to have a special meeting. We can put it on the agenda to entertain any other proposals at that meeting if he doesn't have his foreclosure filed. And we could let the other prospective developers know that this will be on the agenda for the next land bank meeting. But it will be pulled if he has proof of the commencement of the foreclosure action.
mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not, I don't know what the contract with him is gonna look like or what that would entail, or, because he can't commence the foreclosure process until he has a contract with us.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think we should be pretty clear about the time frame for filing the foreclosure action. At the very least, it doesn't alleviate the town if if there's no work that's being done this summer, he's not maintaining that property. And there's still
You
issues.
can't ask him to maintain it, it doesn't own it.
No, I mean, this summer, once he
When
does.
Oh, yeah.
Right. We'll still be fielding those phone calls, but that's why, that would be my concern with that, is if he doesn't follow through with that, filing foreclosure action is really not a big deal. Developing the
I
property.
think it
is a
might
big
be
deal.
the opposite, actually. I think he is, in my experience, like, he's a developer. He can have employees go out there and board things up. He knows how to do that. He does not know how to do, and he is working with an attorney who does not know how to do it. So, like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like the unknown is more difficult to do than something that you're used to doing.
So, I mean, I don't care either way. We could just, I guess I have some concerns either way. I have some concerns if we continue down this path. I have some concerns if we just stop right now. I mean, he may have some damages, I suppose, and open up to other developers. And then if we don't get another developer that we like, even though I think I'm pretty confident we would. So maybe we just put some real tight time parameters on things and we can have him sign a contract this week, but he's got 21 days to file that foreclosure action. I don't feel bad about that. He's had well over, 10 months, 8 months to prepare for this. So if he's not willing to do that, then it'll be on the agenda for our next meeting in February. And then we can let the other prospective developers know that it's on the agenda. And if he doesn't commence the foreclosure action before that meeting takes place, that we will entertain new proposals. But he's got to sign that this week, and it's got to be less than 30 days. We want the date before our next meeting so that we know. And that's just a file. And as far as the development enforcement mortgage, I need to make sure that we have some pretty clear parameters, because that's where the issue is going to be, right? We have to put some thought into what those benchmarks need to be.
That's already signed the other side, right?
No, well, he signed it. I haven't signed
We
it.
have not.
So he would have to re-sign it after you.
Yeah, well, because now we may want to take another look at it. And what I'm getting at is, it's not just a matter, this is, although I've never practiced in this area, I've done enough to know that where the fight's going to be is the interpretation of the parameters.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Because anybody can say, right? Our idea of what exterior improvements can be a lot different than his.
Yeah.
And there's where your fight lies. When we drive by and see wood on all the windows, we say, you haven't done anything. And he says, of course I have.
Yeah.
I've stabilized the property. I bought $30 worth of plywood. It looks great. I'm going to put a mural on it. I've got a place that wants to give me murals. It's going to look great.
Tell Sarah that's where the murals are going.
Place making. Yeah.
So, we want to make sure, we will want to take another look at that.
Yeah.
If he meets the parameter and has the foreclosure filed by the end of before our next meeting, we'll have to let him know that we do want to revisit the mortgage, the enforcement.
Yep.
Take a look at that, but we may not need to change anything. I haven't looked at it, so I just have concerns, so we want to make sure that we're being as clear as we can possibly be.
I believe I'll work with Katie after, but I believe the way we do it is that we reference the development proposal as an attachment within the enforcement mortgage, and his proposal outlines, I remember it stating like windows,
Yes.
doors, so
That's easy enough.
we'll
We'll just
relook at
attach
all
it.
that.
We'll just attach that to
Make sure there's
the
timeframes.
development enforcement mortgage. We'll attach that. That's fine. Because I do recall that he provided us that. It's been a while, but
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with that. Okay, you want to reach out to him then and tell him that he's going to be getting a contract next week that's going to have a return. He's going to have that action filed prior to our next meeting.
Okay,
If he's okay with that, then good.
and then I will reach out to the other developers and let them know what our plan is,
Right,
and tell
and
them
then
that they can.
Wait till we talk to him first, because he may say, I don't want to do it.
Okay,
If
and
he
then,
knows he has an out, and that we have other people that are interested and that we're going to reopen it, he may just say, all right, listen, that's fine. I want to focus on the Main Street property that Kevin will never give me.
Well,
If he's not, he can
That's
go,
all
he
we
can
have
go
to do,
watch
but-
this.
and he's welcome to submit an application. that's.
He is,
that's
he's more than
mine.
welcome to submit
I
an
know, I was
application.
looking at.
That's all, yeah. No, I got it. I hear you. And I'll follow up with,
Right, he can watch the
right,
meeting,
right,
he
yeah.
can watch it. He can watch it. That way he won't be getting it through the grapevine.
Although are we requiring like a fee for them to put down? Yeah.
yeah,
For Main
$10,000.
Street.
yeah, $10,000.
Yeah. All right, no, I appreciate that. Anything else on this thing?
Nope. No, this was key.
No, I don't have anything
Katie, you're on mute, so no, not getting. Okay, so I thought, it's not on the agenda, but I thought it was gonna be on, well, I didn't think it was gonna be on the agenda, I didn't ask anybody to put it on, I didn't know. So we were approached about a county building in Lockport. It's a Shaw building. So it is a building that is off of Upper Mountain Road. So it is near a residential neighborhood with, I believe, about 13 houses. It is in very close proximity to an assisted living facility called the Mount View Assisted Living Facility. It is a building that has been used for the last several decades to house Niagara County Mental Health and Niagara County Public Health. Both of those departments are moving out of that building in the very near future. And there are some concerns about the reuse of that building. Nobody from the legislature that I've talked to has indicated or asked that we use any of the land bank funds or grant funding at all. The question that they had for me was whether or not this would fit within the parameters of the land bank, because and to be perfectly candid, I would assert that it does, but I'm certain that can be offended if anyone doesn't agree with that. So I wanted to mention it now so you can think about it, because really the concern is the reuse of the property. The property is just auctioned. We've lived through this with another county property that social services had moved out of on Davison Road prior to the time I was elected as a legislator in 2004, and that property is still vacant. And so the legislature obviously has a very vested interest in not allowing that to happen again. So I'm mentioning it now so that so you can think about it. It may, depending on what the legislature says or asks me to do, it may end up on our agenda, and we may be looking to review proposals for the reuse of that property. And it would be a transfer from the county, not to the land bank per se, but transfer from the county directly to whatever agency or developer we choose. I don't think there are any, I'm pretty familiar with their bylaws, I'm pretty familiar with the mission, they all seem consistent. So I don't see any issue as long as the county has agreed to it, which they would obviously would. I don't see any issues that would prohibit the land bank from entertaining proposals for that property, but there would really be no investment of any grant funding through the land bank. It would be nothing more than just a transfer. So I'm mentioning it now, so you've got time to think about it. You won't be surprised if you hear about it at the next meeting, or you'd be prepared for it. But if anyone has any concerns, I want you to reach out to me directly. We have a conversation offline so that I can address those concerns, because I'll be perfectly candid, there may be things I haven't thought of. This idea, this initiative just came up recently. So I want to make sure that everyone's comfortable, if that's the direction that we go, if everyone's comfortable doing that. If you're not, feel free to call me. And I have absolutely no problem with that, because the last thing I want to do is move forward on something and create an issue, and maybe something I haven't thought of. So,
Is that the building on the corner of Mount View?
yeah, so when you pull into the Mount View campus, Mount View, it used to be the Mount View Health Facility, is now the assisted living. It's the one you're looking right at.
Oh, the one in the back.
Yes, it's right at the top of the hill. Actually, unfortunately, the building is in need of so much, because we did have some other developers take a look at it. The view, it's right at the top of the escarpment. And in my mind, but I'm not an engineer or a developer or a contractor. In my mind, what an amazing view that building has, but there really has been no interest. But hey, you never know. Maybe there will be.
It
But we have had
overlooks the
some-
jail.
Well, yeah.
I worked there for 20 years. We used to watch the guys play basketball.
Well, don't look down. You look out toward the lake.
Okay.
Well, it's entertainment.
There you go.
Well, that could be one of the reasons why. But
I
we
moved
have had some
here.
interest
It
though.
was great.
So there's at least one nonprofit that is interested. Who's put a lot of effort into rethinking the reuse of that building. So it's not as though we're starting from scratch.
What do they want to do with it?
Um,
Housing is a huge issue,
Well,
and
it's,
there are plenty
Your
of nonprofits
hesitation
looking for
scares
housing.
No, no, it's not- I'm not hesitating, I'm trying to think of, because they're very specific in what it is. It's not a rehab site, it is, a living facility for certain people that have substance abuse issues, but it's not a drug treatment facility. So I don't want to just sit here as a layperson, say, oh, it's a drug treatment facility.
No,
That's not what it is.
We've had people come in and talk about
That's
that.
not what it is.
Yeah.
Does that parcel have any frontage?
No.
No,
In the assisted living, they're not interested in it?
well, they may be. And that's one of the,
backyard.
exactly, they may be. They may be. All right, I don't have anything else. Anyone else have anything else? Okay. Motion by Mr. DiPaolo to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second by Mr. Forma, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank
you.
Bye.
You too, Lynn.